The storm came without warning. Rain hammered against the cracked windows of Blackwood High School, a building older than anyone alive could remember. The corridors stretched endlessly, filled with the stale smell of mildew and dust. Fluorescent lights flickered overhead, buzzing like dying insects. 5 students sat in silence, serving detention on a Friday evening. None of them wanted to be there, especially not when the thunder began to rumble outside. Mia, the quiet bookworm, kept glancing nervously at the windows. Daniel, the skeptic, leaned back in his chair, pretending not to care. Lena, sharp-tongued and restless, tapped her pencil against the desk. Chris, the class clown, tried to lighten the mood with bad jokes. Ethan, the new kid, said almost nothing, his dark eyes fixed on the hallway outside. Mr. Holloway, the history teacher assigned to watch them, sat at his desk, scribbling on papers. The air was heavy with tension. At exactly 7 p.m., the lights flickered violently and went out. The room fell into darkness, lit only by the occasional flash of lightning. "Relax," Daniel muttered. "It's just the storm." But when the lights returned, Mr. Holloway was gone. His chair was empty, papers scattered across the desk as if he had vanished mid-sentence. "Where did he go?" Mia whispered, her voice trembling. Lena stood, her chair scraping against the floor. "Maybe he went to check the fuse box." "No, wait," Chris argued. "He didn't make a sound. He was right there. I swear, he just disappeared." Ethan finally spoke. His voice was low, almost too calm. "Schools this old, they hold things. Memories. Sometimes worse." The others turned to him, confused. "What the hell are you talking about?" Daniel snapped. Ethan's eyes didn't move from the hallway. "This place, it used to be something else before it was a school. Didn't you ever hear the stories?" Lightning cracked outside, followed by a roll of thunder so loud the windows rattled. And then, they all heard it. Footsteps. Slow, dragging, echoing footsteps in the hallway. Locked in. Chris tried to laugh it off, but the sound died in his throat. "Okay, very funny. Someone's messing with us." Lena marched to the door and twisted the handle. It wouldn't budge. She pulled harder, rattling it, but it stayed locked. "It's stuck," she said, panic creeping into her voice. "It's locked," Ethan corrected her. "From the outside." Mia backed away from the door. "That's impossible. Teachers don't lock students in classrooms." "Then explain it," Ethan said coldly. The footsteps grew louder. Closer. They stopped right outside the classroom. Everyone held their breath. The handle turned slowly on its own. But the door didn't open. Instead, a faint whisper slipped through the crack between the door and the frame. A voice so faint they couldn't tell if it was male or female, young or old. The only word they could make out was, "Stay." Suddenly, the door burst open with a bang, slamming against the wall. The hallway beyond was pitch black, except for the faint emergency exit light flickering red at the far end. "Okay, nope. I'm not staying in here," Lena said, stepping cautiously into the hall. The others followed, their footsteps hesitant. The silence pressed against their ears. No teachers. No janitors. Just the storm outside and the occasional crackle of failing electricity. "This doesn't make sense," Daniel muttered. "The power's out, the teacher's gone, and now we're just alone." "Not alone," Ethan corrected. His voice was calm, but his expression was tense. "Listen." They froze. From somewhere deeper in the school came the faint sound of children laughing. They followed the sound, though none of them wanted to admit why. Something about it pulled them, like invisible strings guiding their steps. The laughter echoed faintly, bouncing off the walls until they reached a part of the school none of them recognized. "This hallway isn't on the map," Emiya whispered. The walls here were different, paint peeling away, the tiles cracked, lockers rusted and broken. A faded sign above the double doors read, West Wing, closed since 1952. Why would they keep this part connected to the school? Chris asked. They didn't, Ethan replied. It keeps itself connected. The laughter stopped. And then the sound of a bell ringing. Not the school's modern bell, but an old, mechanical clang, like something from half a century ago. The air grew colder. Their breaths came out in faint white clouds. Mia gasped and pointed. At the far end of the hallway, illuminated by a single flickering light, stood a figure. A tall shadow, motionless, its head slightly tilted as if watching them. Hello? Daniel called, though his voice cracked. The figure didn't move. Lightning flashed, flooding the hallway with light for a split second. And in that instant, they saw it wasn't a person at all. Its face was pale, stretched unnaturally long, with black empty sockets where eyes should have been. When the darkness returned, the figure was gone. Mia screamed. They ran. Their footsteps echoed like gunshots, their breaths ragged. They turned down a stairwell, hoping to reach the main entrance, but when they pushed through the door, their hearts sank. The staircase led downward into darkness that shouldn't have existed. The familiar school layout was gone. Instead of the first-floor exit, there was a narrow, spiraling stairwell lined with old bricks and dripping pipes. This isn't real, Chris stammered. This can't be real. It's real enough, Ethan said. His voice was firm, but his eyes betrayed fear. From below came the sound of chains dragging. And then, a scream. Not one of theirs. A child's scream echoing from the depths. The students exchanged horrified looks. None of them wanted to go down. But the stairwell seemed to stretch endlessly behind them, pulling them forward. Something down there was waiting. And they had no choice but to follow. The stairwell seemed endless, the air thick with damp and rot. Every step they took downward made the walls feel tighter, the shadows deeper. Suddenly, the emergency light above them flickered, then went out completely. They were plunged into total darkness. Mia's voice shook. I can't see anything. Then, from the bottom of the stairwell, a faint glow appeared. It wasn't white light, it was a sickly green, pulsing like a heartbeat. Do you hear that? Ethan whispered. They all fell silent. From below came the sound of children chanting. Low, rhythmic, in a language none of them understood. The words crawled up the walls, wrapping around their minds. Then, a small figure appeared in the green glow. A child. A little girl in an old, torn uniform. Her hair was wet, her eyes hollow. She looked up the stairs at them and smiled. Her voice was a whisper, but it echoed in all their heads at once. You're too late. They already chose one of you. The green light flared, blinding, searing. When their vision cleared, one of the 5 students was gone. The stairwell was silent again. But the chanting continued, deeper now, as if the walls themselves were breathing. And they knew. Whatever had taken their friend was still waiting for the rest of them. To be continued in Part 2, The Forgotten Secrets.